The story that we're focusing on is an old Scandinavian fairy tale which is called East of the Sun and West of the Moon. When kind of doing the research, I kind of looked at old Scandinavian folklore and costume and drew inspiration from their shapes and silhouettes to then translate into the Paolo Sebastian aesthetic and look. We've got a few different shapes through here, and working with the map artwork which kind of tells the story, and a lot of the embroideries are circulating around this idea of travel and journey. I just tried to take little bits of iconography. There's the polar bear, the horses, and they're all hidden in the embroideries. Looking at the traditional Scandinavian costume and dress, you can see here the love heart, which was then taken and referenced to create the embroidery specks here, which will then be transformed into this embroidery. I love the fairy tale aspect and folktale and the storytelling, and I think that's so important in couture and in fashion. I'm really proud of the work that we've done to kind of give people this essence of a dream and a fairy tale and give them something more, so that when they wear these garments, hopefully they feel transported, and that's, for me, really exciting.
We've developed this map artwork which will be transformed into the embroidery that will be used in the collection.
I'm adding to the embroidery of the story, which is about a heroine who's on a journey across the seas and the lands to find her lost love, who has been captured in a castle east of the sun and west of the moon. I've travelled east of the sun, west of the moon, and literally across the whole map, embroidering it all. So my journey has been quite long. I kind of hope she does find her lost love after all this work. The bodice has been moulded with lace and then hand pleated, and then the eyelets have been embroidered over by one of our seamstresses, Pina, who did each and every one of them by hand, which took her hours of work.
It's a lot of work, but the finishing, all done by hand, is so much nicer.
Each piece was basically stitched on individually, so we started off with the pleating first. And then the banding got put over the top, which was hand-stitched again over the top by hand. And I am now just finishing off by binding the waist and neatening up the inside. And once this is done, it's finished.
This is the finale gown. So we've got multiple layers of embroidered tulle that come down into a lovely train underneath another layer of tulle cape. In the context of the fairy tale or the story, this gown, Paul described it as wanting to look as if she's come down from the clouds. So it has to be soft and floaty, and literally that she's descending from the clouds so that it has that beautiful romantic quality to it.
I learnt to sew when I was a child. My grandmother was a seamstress, and she used to send pieces of fabric to my mother all the time, so I used to see my mum sewing.
I was taught to sew by my mother and my grandmother. My mother taught me how to do embroidery when I was very young.
When I was a little girl, my mum was a seamstress, and a lady that looked after me had a little similar sewing machine. And I used to sit just down at bare feet and just play with the scraps.
My aunties were sort of doing it from where they came from, so they call them sarki in Italy. And my sisters learnt off them, and I learnt off my sisters, so yeah, it's just passed on down the generations. Maybe I'll pass it on to my granddaughters one day.
I love here because we use all techniques and we all learn from each other. And with the tailoring, I'm trying to teach all the young ones, and I hope that they can learn properly and keep going.
This collection is inspired by Frozen 2, and we're really working with the elements and iconography that we see in the film. Ice is obviously a very important element featured in this story and in the film. It's representative of Elsa, and what I really wanted to do was create the look of frosted branches kind of creeping up this gown. So what we're going to do is use Swarovski crystals and beadwork to kind of create this super light, icy, crystallized effect, and it will kind of grow up the gown.
I just have to fill in just a few more little spots just up here in the top of the shoulder, and then we're done.
One of the symbols of Arundel is the wheat, because they're a trading port, and so the wheat is a very important symbol to the Kingdom of Arundel. I noticed it featuring on a lot of Anna's garments, so I really wanted to make that a feature for her dress.
I like the bond that Anna and Elsa have as sisters, and I think this dress really portrays that.
And I can understand because I've had two older sisters and they're inspirational to me. If it was not for them, I probably would not be sewing today. Yeah, the story I can relate to.
It's been really enjoyable to work on this one.
Fire is probably one of my favourites because what we did was we took the fire symbol that is going to be seen in the film and linked it together to kind of create this molten-like embroidery, and using bugle beads in different tones of reds and burgundies so that it's almost creating this depth of 3D molten lava when it's worn on the body.
The beadwork represents the fire symbol from the film Frozen 2, which when the dress is on the body actually looks like it's liquid and it just flows like molten lava. True love can be like a beautiful family love where, you know, blood is thicker than water. We're always there for each other. You can always rely on sisters.
This gown here is water, and what we're going to be doing is a silk organza petal-like skirt with a cape, so that when it's worn it's got this fluid, liquid-like movement, and then the embroidery that's going to be featured on the gown is this sort of crashing wave effect with threadwork embroidery, metallic threadwork and beading and crystals.
And all this is to be prepared by hand. I love hand working because the finish is so much nicer than by machine.
So it is this beautiful silk organza that is meant to be looking like the waves in the ocean.
All this embroidery is meant to look like crashing waves.
And this is the horse that Elsa encounters in the ocean. It's been embroidered on that and beaded on the bodice.
This gown here is Wind. What I noticed in a lot of the behind the scenes edits and storyboards for the film, there's this heavy feature of the autumnal leaves that flow through, and so I really wanted to make that a key feature. So this gown is sort of like a very light cape that we're going to do in illusion tulle, and it's going to have the leaves kind of scattered through, done on silk organza and done with beadwork to kind of look very light and like that you're caught in this breeze of autumn leaves.
So you can see the autumn leaves here flowing, and it's like the wind spirit moving all the leaves. These leaves have been embroidered onto silk organza and then all appliqué. So it's all like a journey.
This gown here is inspired by the element of earth. It's going to be super light on illusion tulle, and we're going to work with the motifs of branch works and florals to really kind of create this soft fairy tale effect.
Frozen 2 is about journey and discovery, so there has been a lot of that as the inspiration in the development of these gowns. I think as the mother of 3 boys, characters like the characters in Frozen are actually lovely to see on the screen, that boys also need to see young women who are strong characters.
The inspiration for this season is the passage of spring, and we're really looking at initially these paintings by Botticelli and the 3 graces, which are the personification of beauty, charm and grace. So that's where a lot of the colour palette was drawn from.
There are over 70 seams in this organza layer, and they took hours and hours of work stitching them, then pressing them and then cutting them back to form these thin veins throughout the dress that are almost like a enlarged petal. I'm just filling in around the waist with these flowers, which have a beautiful burnt edging, which makes them very delicate. So I'm particularly excited because this is the first dress I've finished for a collection.
We've developed the colour palette, the textures, everything, so it's very pretty and floral and light and beautiful. And there's a lot of volume and a lot of flounce, and a lot of different silhouettes this season, which has been a lot of fun to create.